I saved my 15-year-old grandson from a shelter 17 years ago. He was skinny, bruised, and broken. Now he's a trauma surgeon. Last night, my daughter, the woman who abandoned him, was rushed into his ER fighting for her life. He had just 10 minutes to decide whether to save her. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The call came at 2:47 a.m. I know because I was staring at my alarm clock, unable to sleep like most nights since I turned 70. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, vibrating against the fake wood like an angry wasp. "Grandma Helen?" Jake's voice was tight, controlled. That's how I knew something was wrong. My grandson never calls me in the middle of the night unless it's serious. "What happened?" "She's here, in my ER, critical condition, car accident." I didn't need to ask who. There was only one she that would make his voice sound like that, hollow and sharp at the same time. "How bad?" "Bad. Internal bleeding. Maybe 20 minutes before we lose her. Maybe less." I sat up in bed, my joints protesting. 17 years. 17 years since I'd last seen my daughter Sarah's face. 17 years since she dumped her son at a homeless shelter and disappeared into whatever hole people like her crawl into. "What are you going to do?" I asked. There was a long pause. Hospital sounds filtered through the phone, beeping monitors, rushing footsteps, someone shouting orders. "I don't know," Jake said finally. "I honestly don't know. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this?" It took a few hours for me to get Jake settled back in my apartment. I'd thrown together a couple of old couches and blankets to make him comfortable, but the weight of the moment pressed down harder than anything I'd ever felt. My grandson was home, and Sarah was gone. No warning, no reason, no closure. Just a voicemail that had rattled everything into pieces. Jake didn't talk much at first. He was quiet, looking out the window, his fingers absent-mindedly tapping against his knee. I couldn't blame him. What do you say to a 12-year-old who's been abandoned by his mother? I didn't know what to say to him either. What could I possibly say to make things better? The truth was, I had no idea how to fix what had happened. But I did know one thing. I wasn't going to leave him alone to figure it out. We went through the motions for the first couple of weeks. I tried to keep things as normal as possible. I made him breakfast in the mornings, pancakes, eggs, whatever he'd eat. I didn't even ask him what he wanted, because I didn't know if he was in the mood for anything. He barely touched the food anyway. I'd try to talk to him, ask about school, about his friends, but most of the time he just nodded or muttered one-word answers. He didn't want to talk about what happened. Hell, I didn't even know how to ask. But we had to keep moving, didn't we? We couldn't stay stuck. I kept my pension money tight, stretched it as far as I could, and even picked up a few tutoring jobs on the side. It wasn't much, but it was enough, just enough to get by. Jake didn't go to school right away. He didn't have the energy, the drive, or the will to do it. Who could blame him? His world had been flipped upside down in a matter of days. So we stayed home for a while. But as the weeks passed, I knew I had to make a move. If he didn't go back to school soon, if he didn't start trying to figure out a way to live with what had happened, it would swallow him whole. I remember the first day I took him to the school. He fought me on it, every step of the way. He hated the idea. He hated everything about it. But I didn't give him a choice. He was going. He had to go. "Grandma, I don't want to go back. I don't belong there. I don't even want to be here," Jake muttered from the back seat, his voice small and bitter. I tried not to flinch, tried not to let his words cut me, but I couldn't help it. It stung. Still, I said, "Jake, you don't get to give up. You're not going to sit in this apartment forever, and you're not going to throw away your life because she did." I didn't even realize what I'd said until the words were out, and the look on his face was a mix of surprise and pain. I instantly regretted it. "I didn't mean that, Jake," I said quickly, my voice softer now. "I know you're hurt. I know you don't understand why your mum left. Hell, I don't understand it either. But you can't just give up. You can't let this... I struggled to find the right word. This mess define who you are. You're better than that. I know you are. Jake didn't respond. He just stared out the window, his face like stone. I let it go, knowing the words had landed somewhere deep in him. Even if he didn't say anything, he didn't have to. I knew he heard me. The school was a grey, lifeless place, the same place I'd gone to for 30 years. And now it felt like a different world. The halls smelled of the same old chalk dust, the same stale air. But to me, it felt colder somehow. The kids, the ones who still had parents who hadn't been left behind, seemed like strangers now. How could they understand? How could they ever understand what it was like to lose someone you loved like that? I walked Jake to his new classroom, and he looked at me with a mix of fear and disdain. He didn't want me to stay, but I couldn't just leave him there, not when everything had changed so much. It felt like he was being swallowed by a world that had no place for him. You're going to be okay, Jake, I told him. My voice was steadier than I felt. I'll be right here when you're done. He nodded but didn't look at me. He just walked away, his shoulders hunched, his head down. I didn't know what would happen in that room, but I knew he was still hurting, and that pain wasn't going to go away overnight. But for now, it was enough that he was at least trying. The first few weeks after that were a blur. Jake went to school and I kept my routine. I tutored. I did my best to keep food on the table. And I tried not to think too much about Sarah. She wasn't coming back. I knew that. But I still caught myself hoping that one day she'd show up and explain herself, apologize, maybe even beg for forgiveness. It was a fool's hope, but it was the only thing I had. Jake didn't talk much at home. He came back every day with the same dull look in his eyes. Sometimes he'd sit at the table and eat with me, but most of the time he just disappeared into his room. I wasn't sure if he was avoiding me or just didn't want to face the reality of it all. Maybe both. A few weeks into school, I was hoping for some progress. I was hoping for some sign that Jake was beginning to come out of his shell. And then, one night, I walked past his room and heard something that stopped me in my tracks. He was crying. I hesitated at the door, not knowing what to do. I'd never seen him cry before, not since he was a little kid, and even then, it was rare. He had always been tough, always put on a front. But now it felt like the world had broken him, piece by piece. I knocked gently. "Jake," I said, my voice soft, "you okay?" There was no answer, just the sound of sniffling. I pushed the door open slowly, careful not to startle him. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, shoulders shaking with each sob. The sight of him like that was almost too much to bear. I wasn't used to seeing my grandson so vulnerable. He'd always been the one who tried to hold it together, even when everything was falling apart. I sat down next to him, not saying anything at first. I didn't need to say anything. I just needed to be there. I put my hand on his shoulder, and he flinched, but he didn't pull away. Slowly, he leaned into me, his small frame trembling against mine. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for being so angry, for everything." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure what would help him feel better. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him go through this alone. Not anymore. "You don't have to be sorry, Jake," I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "You didn't do anything wrong. Your mom, she's the one who left, and you didn't deserve any of this. I'm sorry too. I'm sorry you have to carry all this hurt." He nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to stop feeling like it's my fault." "It's not your fault, Jake," I said firmly. "None of this is your fault. You're just a kid. You're just trying to survive." And in that moment, I knew something had shifted. He wasn't healed, not by a long shot, but he had started to open up, even if it was just a little. It was a start. I didn't know what the future would hold. Maybe Sarah would never come back. Maybe Jake would never be the same. But I knew one thing. I was going to keep fighting for him. Keep fighting for us both. Because when everything else falls apart, you have to hold on to what's left. And we still had each other. The first year was rough. Jake barely spoke. He'd wake up screaming from nightmares, his body tangled in the sheets, like he was trying to escape from something that was always just out of reach. Sometimes I'd hear him in the middle of the night, gasping for air, eyes wide open, but not seeing anything. The school counselor said he had abandonment issues and trust problems, which seemed like stating the obvious. But we worked through it. I gave him my bedroom. I slept on the couch, even though the old springs dug into my back and kept me up half the night. We couldn't afford much, but we had each other. I tried to make it work. He wasn't the only one who had to adjust. I had to relearn how to live with someone again after years of being alone. After thinking I'd be alone for the rest of my life. But the truth was, I didn't mind. Not really. As long as Jake was here, we were a family again, even if we didn't look like one. Every night after dinner, I helped him with his homework at the kitchen table. He was so focused, so determined. Even when it was clear he didn't want to do it, he never complained. He just sat there, head bent over the papers, furiously scribbling answers. The kid had a fire in him. I saw it in the way he tore through math problems or devoured books like they were his lifeline. He didn't say it, but I knew it. He wasn't just trying to get through school. He was trying to get through life. Every test, every paper, every project was a way to prove that he could do something, anything, that wasn't tied to the mess his mother left behind. I went to every parent-teacher conference, every school event, every moment that mattered. I wasn't going to miss a single thing. Even when it meant I had to miss a shift at the tutoring center or stretch my money thinner than I ever thought possible. I would sit in those folding chairs in the school gym, surrounded by other parents, most of them in their work clothes or business suits, while I wore the same tired cardigan I'd had since the early 90s. But I didn't care. Jake was worth it. And then there were the awards, the trophies, the ribbons. It seemed like every time I turned around, there was another achievement, another milestone. National Honor Society, science fairs, math competitions. The teachers loved him because he worked harder than anyone else, like he was trying to prove something. He'd walk through the door with that shy smile, holding up a certificate or a trophy like it was no big deal. But I could see it in his eyes. He was proud. He was trying to rebuild himself, brick by brick, and these accomplishments were his way of showing the world that he wasn't broken, that he hadn't been ruined by what had happened, that he could still be something. "I'm going to be a doctor," he told me one night when he was 17. We were eating spaghetti at our tiny kitchen table, the one that wobbled unless you put a folded napkin under the left leg. I laughed, the sound coming out a little louder than I expected. "That's expensive," I said, not to discourage him, but to be realistic. It wasn't just the money. It was the weight of what he was saying, the enormity of the dream. Becoming a doctor, especially a trauma surgeon, wasn't something you just decided one day. It was a mountain that you had to climb, and the climb was brutal. It required sacrifices I didn't think he fully understood yet. "I'll figure it out," he said, his voice steady, determined. "Scholarships, loans, whatever it takes." He looked at me with those intense brown eyes of his. "I want to help people who can't help themselves. I want to fix things." I knew what he meant. He wasn't just talking about broken bones or bleeding patients. He was talking about fixing what his mother broke. He was talking about being the opposite of Sarah in every way. Where she had abandoned him, he would fight for others. Where she had destroyed, he would heal. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I believed he could do it. That night, after he went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around my coffee mug, staring at the photo of him from when he was a little boy. A baby, really, in his tiny Superman pajamas, smiling up at the camera. It felt like a lifetime ago, and yet there was still that same spark in him, that same determination. I wasn't sure if he even knew it yet, but he was already stronger than I could ever be. He got into Colombia on a full ride. I still remember the call, the way my heart nearly stopped when I saw his name pop up on my phone. Colombia. The dream was starting to take shape. I cried, of course. I had to. There was no way I could hide it. And then came Johns Hopkins for medical school. He wasn't just getting into good schools. He was getting into the best, the ones everyone else dreamed about, but never quite reached. I couldn't keep up with the letters of acceptance, the scholarships, the achievements. They came so fast, one after another. I had to pin them to the refrigerator just to keep track. Mount Sinai, the trauma surgery residency. Every step, Jake climbed higher, further away from the life Sarah had left behind. Every achievement, he sent me a picture. I couldn't wait to put them up, to show off his success to everyone who came into my apartment. My refrigerator was covered with his accomplishments, held up by magnets shaped like apples, one for each year, one for each achievement. But despite all of that, despite everything he'd done to build himself up, there was one thing that never came up. Not once, in all those years, did Sarah's name ever pass his lips. It was like she didn't exist. She was a ghost, a shadow in the background of our lives, haunting me more than him. For him, it was as if she had never been there to begin with. And honestly, that was fine by me. He didn't need her. He had me. And that was enough. Until last night. I don't know what made him bring it up. Maybe it was the stress of finals, or the weight of the decisions he was facing. But we were sitting together in the living room, the TV on in the background, when he said something that caught me completely off guard. "Mum called," he said, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. I froze. I felt the air in the room change, like the walls were closing in on me. "What?" I asked, my voice tight, the words barely escaping. "Mum," he said again. "She called. Last night. I don't know why, but I answered." I couldn't breathe for a second. My heart pounded in my chest. "What did she want?" He shrugged, his face unreadable. "She said she was sorry, that she made a mistake and she wanted to come see me. She wants to meet me." I stared at him, the words spinning in my head, but none of them made sense. "Jake," my voice cracked. "She left you, she left us, she—" "I know, Grandma, I know." His voice was so calm, so steady, it almost scared me. "But she wants to see me. She's different now. She said she changed. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it." I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, my heart in my throat. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell him that this was a bad idea, that she would hurt him again. But another part of me, some deep, buried part, wanted to hope, wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had come to her senses, that she had figured out the mess she'd made, that she could still fix something. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I should tell him to never see her again, or if I should let him make his own choice. "Jake, you don't have to do this," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't owe her anything. You don't owe her another chance. You're better than that." "I know," he said softly. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to see her, just to hear her say she's sorry. But the other part of me..." He trailed off, eyes distant, like he was looking into something I couldn't see. "The other part of me is scared." I didn't have the words to fix it. I didn't have the answers. I just sat there with him, feeling that same ache I'd had since the moment Sarah walked away. But this time, I wasn't sure if the pain was for her or for him. Maybe it was for both of them. "I'm here," I said finally, my voice thick. "I'm here no matter what you decide. You don't have to do anything you don't want to." He nodded, his eyes locked on mine, like he was searching for something. I didn't know if he found it, but I knew one thing. Whatever happened next, we would face it together. I threw on clothes and caught a cab to Mount Sinai. The cab driver tried to make conversation, but I shut him down with silence. My mind was racing. Sarah. After all these years, she crashes back into our lives, literally. And now Jake had to decide whether to save her. The ER waiting room smelled like disinfectant and desperation. A security guard directed me to the surgical floor. I rode the elevator up, watching the numbers climb, each one feeling like a small eternity. Jake was standing outside the operating room, still in his scrubs. His surgical mask hung around his neck. He looked older than 32, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. "Grandma," he said when he saw me, "you didn't have to come." "Yes, I did." I walked up to him, studying his face. "Talk to me." He ran a hand through his dark hair, making it stick up in odd directions. She came in unconscious. Head trauma, internal bleeding, fractured ribs. The paramedics said she ran a red light, T-boned by a delivery truck. Of course it was. Sarah had always liked her drinks. Driver's license says she's been living in Jersey City, works as a bartender. Jake's voice was clinical, detached. "She has my name listed as her emergency contact. Can you believe that? 17 years of silence, and I'm still her emergency contact." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means she never forgot about me, even when she pretended I didn't exist." His jaw tightened. "There's a good trauma surgeon on call, Dr. Patterson. He's excellent. He can handle the surgery. But I'm better." Jake met my eyes. "I'm one of the best trauma surgeons in this hospital. If anyone can save her, it's me. But I'd have to want to save her." There it was, the question underneath the question. "Do you want to save her?" I asked. Jake was quiet for a long time. Hospital sounds filled the silence. Monitors beeping, someone paging a doctor over the intercom, a patient moaning in a nearby room. "I don't know," he said finally. "Part of me wants to walk away, let Patterson handle it, maintain my distance. She abandoned me, Grandma. She chose some man over her own son. She left me in a shelter like I was trash." "I know. But another part of me," he paused, struggling, "another part of me remembers being 7 years old, and she made me pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. And when I was 9, she stayed up all night with me when I had the flu. And there were good moments, before Frank, before everything went wrong. She was my mom." My heart broke a little. After everything Sarah had done, Jake still remembered the good parts. That's the thing about abandoned children. They hold on to the smallest scraps of love like their treasure. "There's something else," Jake said. "If I don't operate, if I let Patterson do it and she dies, I'll always wonder if I could have saved her. I'll carry that question for the rest of my life. But if I do operate, if I save her, then what? Do we have a relationship? Do I forgive her? Do I let her back into my life after 17 years? "Those are questions for later," I said. "Right now, you need to decide who you are. Not who she is, not what she did. Who are you?" Jake looked at me, really looked at me. "I'm a doctor. I took an oath." "You did. First, do no harm." He laughed bitterly. "Even when the patient is the one who harmed you first." I put my hand on his arm. "Whatever you decide, I support you. If you walk away, I understand. If you operate, I understand. There's no wrong answer here." "Yes, there is," Jake said quietly. "Selfish, putting my feelings above everything else." He straightened his shoulders. "I'm going to operate, but not for her, for me. Because I'm not going to let her turn me into someone I'm not." Jake scrubbed in. I watched through the observation window as he took his position at the operating table. Sarah was laid out under bright lights, her body covered with blue surgical drapes. Monitors beeped steadily. The anesthesiologist sat at her head, managing airways and vitals. I could see Sarah's face, peaceful in unconsciousness. She looked older, worn down by hard living. Her hair, once glossy brown, was dull and streaked with grey. Deep lines cut across her forehead and around her mouth. This wasn't the daughter I remembered, but then again, 17 years changes everyone. Jake's hands were steady as he made the first incision. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I could see the focused intensity on his face. The surgery took 4 hours. I sat in that observation room the entire time, unable to look away. I watched my grandson save the life of the woman who had destroyed his childhood. There was something almost biblical about it, though I'd never been much for religion. Around hour 3, there was a complication. Alarms started going off. Jake's team moved faster, their coordination perfect. Rapid-fire orders. For a moment, I thought they were going to lose her. But Jake didn't panic. He worked through the crisis with the same steady determination he'd shown his entire life. That's what Sarah had given him, unintentionally. The ability to function under impossible pressure because he'd survived impossible circumstances. At 7:23 a.m., Jake stepped back from the table. He said something to his team, then pulled off his gloves and mask. Even through the observation window, I could see the exhaustion in his shoulders. The surgery was over. Sarah was alive. Jake found me in the waiting room an hour later, after he'd changed out of his surgical scrubs. His hair was still damp from the shower. "She's going to make it," he said, dropping into the chair beside me. "Barring any complications, she should wake up in the next few hours. You did good work." "I did my job." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Now comes the hard part. Talking to her. Deciding whether I want to." We sat in silence for a while. The waiting room was filling up with people. Worried families, exhausted patients, nurses grabbing coffee between shifts. Life continuing in all its messy complexity. "I need to tell you something," Jake said finally. "Something I've never told anyone." "Okay." "When I was at that shelter before you came to get me, I made a decision. I decided that if you didn't show up by the end of the week, I was going to run away. Head west, disappear, start over somewhere new." He looked at me. "I was ready to give up on family completely. And then you walked in." My throat tightened. "I would have torn the city apart looking for you." "I know that now, but at 15 I didn't. I thought maybe everyone in my life was capable of abandonment. Mum did it, so why wouldn't you?" He smiled sadly. "You saved me, Grandma. Not just from the shelter, from becoming someone bitter and angry and alone. You showed me that some people stay." "Always," I said. "That's why I operated on her. Because you taught me that being hurt doesn't give you permission to hurt others. You could have been angry at Sarah forever. You could have refused to take me in because you were mad at her. But you didn't. You chose love over resentment. It wasn't hard. You're my grandson. But she's your daughter, and you've been angry at her for 17 years. I know you have." Jake turned to face me. "What happens now? When she wakes up? Do we talk to her? Do we give her a chance to explain?" I'd been thinking about that question since Jake called. 17 years of anger, festering like an old wound. 17 years of watching my grandson struggle with abandonment issues and trust problems. 17 years of hating Sarah for what she did. But looking at Jake now, strong, compassionate, successful, despite everything, I realized something. "She doesn't deserve our forgiveness," I said slowly. "But maybe we deserve to give it. Not for her sake, for ours." Jake nodded. "I've been carrying this anger around for so long. It's like a weight. Every patient I save, every surgery I complete, part of me is trying to prove I'm nothing like her. But maybe the best way to prove that is to show mercy she never showed me." "That's very mature of you." "I had a good teacher." He squeezed my hand. "Will you be there? When I talk to her? If you want me to be." "I do. You're the only family I've ever been able to count on." Sarah woke up around noon. A nurse came to get us. Jake and I walked to her room together, our footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. My heart was pounding, adrenaline making my hands shake. 17 years. 17 years of imagining this moment, never thinking it would actually come. Sarah's room was small and sterile, dominated by the hospital bed and monitoring equipment. She was propped up slightly, an oxygen cannula in her nose. IV lines snaking from her arms. She looked small and fragile, nothing like the woman who had once seemed so invincible. Her eyes opened when we entered. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that might have been shame. "Jake," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, damaged. "Hello, Sarah." Jake's voice was professional, distant. He stood at the foot of her bed, maintaining space. "I'm Dr. Richardson. I was your trauma surgeon. You were in a serious car accident." She blinked, processing. "You're a doctor?" "I am. But you're my son." Her eyes found me standing behind Jake. "Mom?" I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to speak yet. Jake pulled up her chart, all business. "You have a concussion, 3 fractured ribs, a ruptured spleen that we repaired, and significant internal bleeding that we controlled. You're lucky to be alive. Another 10 minutes and you would have bled out." "You saved me," Sarah said. "After everything." "I took an oath," Jake interrupted, "to do no harm, to treat all patients regardless of who they are or what they've done. You were a patient who needed surgery. I provided that surgery." Sarah's face crumpled. Tears started running down her cheeks, and she didn't wipe them away. "I'm so sorry. God, Jake, I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix 17 years. I know it doesn't." She struggled to sit up further, wincing at the pain. "I was selfish. I was horrible. I chose a man over my own child, and there's no excuse for that. None." "Then why did you do it?" Jake's voice was tight, controlled anger leaking through the professional facade. "Why did you dump me at a shelter like garbage? Why didn't you even say goodbye?" Sarah closed her eyes. "Frank said he'd leave me if I brought you. He said he couldn't handle the responsibility of a teenager. And I was so desperate to be loved, to be chosen, that I believed him. I thought if I just did what he wanted, everything would be perfect." "How'd that work out?" I asked, speaking for the first time. My voice came out harsh. Sarah looked at me. "He left me 6 months later for a younger woman, and I was too ashamed to come back. Too ashamed to face what I'd done. So I kept running. New city, new job, new life. But I never forgot you, Jake. I checked on you. I knew when you graduated high school. I knew when you got into Columbia. I followed your career online, saw your name in medical journals." She laughed bitterly. "I told people at the bar where I worked that my son was a doctor. Isn't that pathetic? Acting proud of you while having no right to be." Jake was quiet for a long moment. The monitors beeped steadily. Somewhere down the hall, someone was laughing. "You kept my name as your emergency contact," he said finally. "I did. Stupid, I know. You had every reason to refuse the call." Sarah met his eyes. "Why didn't you?" "Because I'm not you," Jake said simply. "I don't abandon people when things get hard. I don't run away from responsibility. I face it." The words hung in the air like an accusation and a declaration all at once. Sarah nodded slowly. "You're right. You're better than me. You always were. Even as a kid, you were kinder, stronger, more decent than I ever managed to be." She looked at both of us. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that abandoning you was the worst thing I ever did. It's the mistake that defined my entire life. Everything after that went wrong because I was the kind of person who could do something so unforgivable." Jake pulled up a chair and sat down, finally closing some of the distance between them. "Tell me about the last 17 years, not the version you told people at the bar, the real version." Sarah took a shaky breath. "After Frank left, I bounced around, waited tables, tended bar, cleaned houses. Never stayed anywhere long because I was afraid someone would ask about my family, and I'd have to lie or tell the truth. Both options felt impossible." "Did you ever think about reaching out?" "Every day. But what would I say? 'Sorry I abandoned you. Want to grab coffee?' It felt too small for what I'd done, and I was afraid you'd reject me, which I absolutely deserved. So I stayed away and told myself it was for the best." "It wasn't," Jake said quietly. "Do you know what abandonment does to a kid? The therapist I saw for years said I had attachment disorder. I couldn't trust anyone. I pushed people away before they could leave me. It took years of work to function normally in relationships. I know, I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing, I don't want your apologies. Jake leaned forward. If you could go back, what would you do differently? Sarah didn't hesitate. I would tell Frank to leave. I would choose you. Every single time I would choose you. But I can't go back. All I have is now, and now I'm a washed-up bartender with a drinking problem and a son who's a trauma surgeon. The irony isn't lost on me. You need help, Jake said. Rehab, therapy, a structured support system. I can't afford that. I can. Jake stood up. Here's what's going to happen. When you're discharged, you're going into a 90-day rehab program. I'll cover the costs. After that, you're starting therapy and attending AA meetings. I'll monitor your progress. Sarah stared at him. Why would you do that for me? Because holding on to anger is exhausting, and I'm tired, because my grandmother taught me that mercy is stronger than revenge, and because somewhere, under all the mistakes and bad decisions, you're still the person who made me Mickey Mouse pancakes. Jake's voice softened slightly. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you. I don't know if I'll ever be, but I'm willing to help you become someone who deserves one. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. My grandson, offering grace to the person who had hurt him most. Sarah was crying openly now, her thin shoulders shaking. Thank you, she managed. Thank you. Jake nodded. Don't thank me yet. Rehab is hard. Getting sober is harder. Facing what you've done without alcohol to numb the pain is the hardest thing you'll ever do. But if you're serious about changing, I'll support that change. We left Sarah's room 20 minutes later. Jake had made all the arrangements, rehab facility, medical coverage, follow-up appointments. He moved through the logistics with the same precision he brought to surgery. In the hallway, he finally let the professional mask drop. He leaned against the wall, exhausted in every possible way. That was hard, he said. Yes, it was. Did I do the right thing? I thought about it. There's no right thing here. There's only the thing you can live with. Can you live with giving her a chance? I think so. It feels better than the alternative. He looked at me. Are you okay with this? She hurt you too. She's your daughter, but she put me in a shelter and disappeared. I'd been thinking about that since the moment Sarah woke up. 17 years of anger. 17 years of hating my own daughter for what she'd done to my grandson. But looking at Jake now, I realized something important. Sarah took away 3 years of your childhood, I said slowly. But we got 14 years after that. 14 years of dinners at our wobbly table. 14 years of homework help and school events, and watching you grow into someone extraordinary. She tried to destroy your life, and instead, she gave us each other. Jake smiled, really smiled for the first time since his 2 a.m. phone call. You always know what to say. That's what grandmothers are for. We walked out of the hospital together into the bright afternoon sun. The city hummed around us, taxis honking, people rushing past, the smell of hot dogs and garbage and possibility. Life in all its messy, complicated, beautiful chaos. I'm going home to sleep for 12 hours, Jake said. Then I have a date tomorrow night. A date? You didn't tell me you were seeing someone. Her name is Amy. She's a pediatric nurse. We met at a hospital charity event 3 months ago. He grinned. I was going to introduce you, but then last night happened. I want to meet her. You will, she's important. Jake hugged me, something he didn't do often. Thank you for coming last night, for being here, for everything. Always, I said into his shoulder. Always. 3 months later, I got a text from Sarah. She'd completed her rehab program and was living in a sober house in Brooklyn. The text was simple. I'm 30 days clean. Thank you for giving me a chance. I didn't respond immediately. I sat with my phone, staring at those words. Part of me was still angry. The wounds Sarah had inflicted didn't heal just because she'd completed a program. But another part of me, the part that had raised Jake, that had watched him show mercy when he had every reason not to, understood that healing required more than anger. I texted back, "Keep going, one day at a time." Jake visited her once a month. He told me about these visits over our regular Sunday dinners, which we still had at my apartment despite his protests that he could afford to take me somewhere nice. "She's different," he said one evening, twirling spaghetti on his fork. "Sober Sarah is like meeting a new person. She's present, she listens, she takes responsibility without making excuses." "Do you believe it's real?" "I think so. Time will tell." He set down his fork. "She asked about you, whether you'd be willing to meet with her." My first instinct was to say no, but I thought about what I'd told Jake, that mercy was stronger than revenge, that we deserved to give forgiveness not for Sarah's sake, but for our own. "Maybe," I said. "Not yet, but maybe someday." Jake nodded. "That's fair. She's not expecting anything. She knows she has to earn back trust, and that might take years, if it ever happens at all." "How do you feel about her now?" I asked. He thought about it. "I don't hate her anymore. I'm not sure I love her yet, but I'm curious about who she's becoming. That's something. That's more than something. That's hope." 6 months after the accident, Jake got married. The ceremony was small, held in a garden in Central Park. Amy was beautiful and kind, everything my grandson deserved. I sat in the front row, watching him say his vows with tears streaming down my face. Sarah was not invited. Jake had been clear about that. "This is my day," he'd told her during one of their monthly meetings. "A day about moving forward, not reconciling the past. I hope you understand." She did. She sent a card with a simple message. "Congratulations. I'm proud of you. Love, Mom." At the reception, Jake gave a toast. He thanked his colleagues, his new wife's family, his friends. Then he looked at me. "Most importantly, I want to thank my grandmother, Helen Richardson. When I was 15 years old, she saved my life. Not metaphorically, literally. She pulled me out of a bad situation and gave me a home, a future, and unconditional love. Everything I am, everything I've accomplished, exists because she chose me when someone else didn't. Grandma, I love you. Thank you for never giving up on me." The reception erupted in applause. I stood up, shaky on my old legs, and hugged my grandson. My baby. My boy. The kid from the shelter who became a doctor, who saves lives. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered in his ear. "I learned from the best," he whispered back. A year after the accident, Sarah reached out again. She'd been sober for 12 months. She had a steady job as a manager at a coffee shop. She was attending therapy twice a week and had become a sponsor for other women in recovery. "Would you meet me for coffee?" her text asked. "No expectations, just coffee." I thought about it for a week. Jake didn't push me either way. "This is your decision," he said. "Whatever you choose, I support you." Finally, I agreed. We met at a neutral coffee shop in Manhattan on a Tuesday afternoon. I got there first and waited, my heart pounding. When Sarah walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked healthy. Her hair was styled nicely. Her eyes were clear. She looked 10 years younger than she had in that hospital bed. "Hi, Mom," she said quietly. "Hello, Sarah." We sat down with our coffees. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The coffee shop buzzed around us, espresso machines hissing, customers laughing, music playing softly overhead. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said finally. "I wasn't sure you would." I wasn't sure either. I don't expect forgiveness. I know what I did is unforgivable. I abandoned my son. I hurt you. I threw away everything that mattered for a man who didn't even stick around. She looked down at her coffee. But I'm trying to be better, not for redemption, just because it's the right thing to do. Jake says you've been sober for a year. 14 months, actually. It's been the hardest and best thing I've ever done. Facing everything I did without alcohol to blur the edges. It almost broke me, But my sponsor kept saying that the only way out is through, so I went through. I studied her face, looking for signs of the daughter I used to know, the girl who loved reading, who wanted to be a writer, who had so much potential before life got complicated. Maybe she was still in there somewhere. Why now? I asked. Why get sober now, after all these years? Because Jake gave me a reason. He saved my life, even though I didn't deserve it. That kind of grace, it demanded a response. I couldn't waste the second chance he gave me. We talked for 2 hours. Sarah told me about her journey through addiction, about the rock-bottom moments, about the slow climb back to something resembling a functional life. She didn't make excuses. She didn't minimize what she'd done. She just told the truth. I'm not asking to be part of the family again, she said as we were getting ready to leave. I know I lost that right 17 years ago, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry and that I'm trying to become someone who could have made different choices. I looked at my daughter, broken, healing, imperfect, trying. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. The hurt runs too deep, but I can acknowledge that you're trying, and that's not nothing. Sarah nodded. That's more than I expected. Thank you. We left the coffee shop and stood on the sidewalk outside. The city rushed around us, indifferent to our small moment of potential reconciliation. Can we do this again? Sarah asked. Maybe once a month. No pressure, just coffee and conversation. I thought about Jake's monthly visits with her, about his willingness to extend grace, about the man he'd become despite everything. Okay, I said, once a month. But Sarah, if you relapse, if you fall back into old patterns, I'm done. I can't watch you self-destruct again. Once was enough. I understand. I won't let you down. You've said that before. I know. But this time is different. This time I have something to prove, to myself, not anyone else. We parted ways. I watched her walk down the street, shoulders straight, purpose in her step. Maybe she'd make it, maybe she wouldn't, but at least she was trying. 2 years after the accident, Jake and Amy had a baby, a little girl named Grace. When Jake called to tell me, his voice was choked with emotion. She's perfect, Grandma. She's absolutely perfect. I went to the hospital that same day, held my great-granddaughter in my arms and cried. This tiny person, born into a family built on love and second chances. She'd never know the darkness that had touched her father's childhood. She'd grow up with parents who chose her every single day. Does Sarah know? I asked Jake. He nodded. I sent her a photo. She texted back congratulations and said she's crocheting a blanket. Apparently that's something she learned in rehab. Are you going to let her meet Grace? Jake looked at his daughter, sleeping peacefully in his arms. Eventually, when Grace is old enough to understand the complexity of the situation. When Sarah has proven over years, not months, that she's stable. I won't risk my daughter's emotional safety for my mother's redemption. That's fair. But I'm not closing the door permanently. If Sarah stays sober, if she continues doing the work, maybe someday Grace can know her grandmother. Just not today. I understood. Jake was protecting his daughter the way I'd protected him. Breaking the cycle of abandonment and inconsistency. Creating something new. 5 years after the accident, I turned 75. Jake threw me a birthday party at his house, a beautiful brownstone in Park Slope that he and Amy had bought 2 years earlier. Grace was 3 now, a whirlwind of energy and questions and laughter. The party was small. Jake's colleagues from the hospital, Amy's family, a few of my old teacher friends, and Sarah sitting quietly in the corner, nursing a soda. Jake had asked my permission before inviting her. She's been sober for 5 years, Grandma. She's worked her program. She's been consistent with therapy and meetings. I think she's earned a chance to be part of this. I'd agreed, though seeing her walk into the party still sent a jolt through my system. 5 years of monthly coffee meetups hadn't completely erased 17 years of anger, but they'd softened it into something more manageable. Sarah approached me carefully. holding a wrapped gift. "Happy birthday, Mum." "Thank you." I took the gift, feeling the weight of it. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." She gestured to an empty chair. "May I sit?" We sat together while the party swirled around us. I opened her gift, a photo album, carefully assembled. Pictures of Jake through the years, his high school graduation, his college acceptance letter, his medical school white coat ceremony, his wedding, pictures of Grace. "I know I wasn't there for any of these moments," Sarah said quietly, "but I followed his journey from a distance. These are articles about him, photos from the hospital website, things I collected over the years. I thought you might want them, a reminder of everything he accomplished." I flipped through the pages, my vision blurring with tears. "You kept all of this?" "I did. It was my way of staying connected when I had no right to be. My penance, I guess. Watching him succeed from the shadows. He did succeed, despite everything." "Because of you," Sarah corrected. "You gave him stability and love when I gave him abandonment. You're the hero of this story, Mum, not me." I closed the album, holding it against my chest. There are no heroes here, just people doing their best with what they have. Sarah smiled sadly. "You always were generous with Grace." Across the room, Jake was holding Grace, showing her how to blow out practice candles on a cupcake. Amy stood beside them, laughing at their daughter's enthusiastic attempts. It was a perfect moment of ordinary family happiness. "He's a good father," Sarah said, following my gaze. "He is. He learned from the best and worst examples. I'm glad he broke the cycle. That Grace will grow up differently than he did." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. 5 years ago, I never would have imagined this, sitting peacefully with my daughter at a family gathering. But time and consistent effort had built something fragile and new between us. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not yet, but something like acceptance. "Mom," Sarah said hesitantly, "I want to say something, and I need you to just listen. Don't respond. Just hear me." "Okay." She took a deep breath. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know the pain I caused can't be erased by sobriety or therapy or years of showing up. But I need you to know that not a day goes by where I don't think about what I did, where I don't wish I could go back and make different choices. The guilt is something I carry every moment, and I'm okay with that. It's my burden to bear. But I also need you to know that having these monthly coffee dates with you, being allowed to exist on the periphery of Jake's life, being here today, it means everything to me. You didn't have to give me any of this. Thank you." My throat was tight. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone genuinely transformed by consequences and hard work. The woman sitting beside me wasn't the person who had abandoned her son 17 years ago. That Sarah had been selfish and weak. This Sarah had walked through fire and come out steel. "You're welcome," I said finally. "Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. That's all any of us can do." Grace ran over to us, her little face flushed with excitement. "Great-grandma, come see. Daddy made me a castle." I let her pull me toward the living room, where Jake had constructed an elaborate blanket fort. Sarah stayed in the kitchen, maintaining her careful distance. She understood the boundaries. Grace knew her as Miss Sarah, a friend of the family, nothing more. Maybe someday, Jake would tell his daughter the full story, but that was his decision to make. The party continued into the evening. People ate cake and told stories and laughed. Normal, ordinary, beautiful. The life I'd built with Jake after pulling him from that shelter. The life that had almost been destroyed, but had somehow survived. As guests started leaving, Jake found me in the kitchen. "Thank you for letting Sarah come. I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't, but it was right." I hugged him. "You've built something good here, Jake. A real family. The kind that chooses each other every day. I learned from you. You learned from necessity, but you perfected it on your own." Amy joined us, carrying a sleeping Grace. She's exhausted, too much cake and excitement. I looked at the three of them, 4, counting Sarah cleaning up in the dining room, and felt something settle in my chest. Not closure exactly, not complete healing, but something like peace. 7 years after the accident, I had a stroke. Not severe, but enough to land me in the hospital. Jake was there within 20 minutes, still in his scrubs from the ER. He examined me with professional concern, masking personal fear. "You're going to be okay, Grandma. Minor stroke. Some weakness on your left side, but we caught it early. You'll need physical therapy, but full recovery is likely." I tried to speak, but the words came out slurred. "Don't talk yet. Just rest. I'm going to take care of everything." And he did. Jake arranged for the best neurologist, the best physical therapist, the best care. He visited every day, sometimes twice a day. Amy brought Grace, who was 5 now, and chatted endlessly about kindergarten and her friends and the tooth she'd lost. On the 3rd day, Sarah showed up. She stood in the doorway of my hospital room, uncertain. "Jake called me," she said. "He thought you might want visitors. I can leave if you'd rather." I shook my head, gesturing to the chair beside my bed. My speech was improving, but still difficult. "Stay." She sat down, pulling the chair close. "You scared us. Jake said you're going to be fine, but still, hospitals are frightening." "Tell me, Ian, about it," I managed, my words slow and careful. Sarah talked. She told me about her job. She'd been promoted to regional manager of the coffee shop chain, about her sponsor work, helping newly sober women navigate early recovery, about the small apartment she'd moved into, nothing fancy but hers, about the life she'd built from the ashes of the old one. 7 years sober next month, she said. 7 years of showing up, of doing the work. It doesn't erase what I did, but it's something. It's everything, I said, forcing the words out clearly. You changed. I had to. Jake's mercy gave me the space to choose change. She reached for my hand, hesitant. When I didn't pull away, she held it gently. You're going to recover from this. You're too stubborn not to. I smiled, or tried to. Stubborn runs in family. It does. Recovery was slow and frustrating. My left side remained weak, my speech slurred for weeks. Physical therapy was exhausting. Some days I wanted to give up, let myself fade into old age and infirmity. But Jake wouldn't let me. You didn't let me give up when I was 15, he said during one particularly difficult therapy session. I'm not letting you give up now. Come on. 10 more steps. I took 10 more steps with the walker, my legs shaking. Jake walked beside me, close enough to catch me if I fell, but far enough to let me do it myself. The same way I'd helped him with homework all those years ago, present but not controlling. 3 months after the stroke, I was well enough to go home. Jake wanted me to move in with him and Amy, but I refused. I'm not helpless, I told him, my speech still slightly halting. I can manage. At least let me hire a home health aide. Part-time, 2 days, week. We compromised on 3 days a week. A kind woman named Patricia came to help with shopping and cleaning, and anything physical that was still difficult. I hated needing help, but I accepted it. That was growth too. Sarah visited once a week now, in addition to our monthly coffee dates. She'd bring groceries or cook dinner, casual and unobtrusive. We'd fallen into a comfortable rhythm, not mother and daughter in the traditional sense, but something adjacent to it, something new. Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me? She asked one evening while we were eating the chicken soup she'd made. I thought about it. I don't know. The hurt is still there, but it's quieter now. Forgiveness isn't an event. It's a process. That's fair. Sarah ladled more soup into my bowl. I don't need forgiveness to keep showing up. I'm here regardless. I know that matters. Grace turned 7. and Jake finally told her the truth about Sarah. He did it carefully, age-appropriately, with Amy by his side. "Miss Sarah is actually your other grandmother," he explained. "She's my mom. But when I was younger, she made some very bad choices and wasn't able to be my mom for a long time. Great-grandma Helen raised me instead." Grace processed this with the seriousness of a child trying to understand adult complexity. "So, I have two grandmas on your side." "You do. Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because some things are complicated, and we wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand." Grace thought about this. "Is Grandma Sarah, is she nice now?" "She's trying very hard to be, and she's been very consistent for many years. So yes, she's nice now." "Okay." Grace accepted this with the easy flexibility of childhood. "Can I call her Grandma Sarah?" Jake looked at Sarah, who was crying quietly. "Is that okay with you?" "Yes," Sarah managed. "That's more than okay." And just like that, the family reconfigured again. Grace started calling Sarah Grandma Sarah, and me Great-Grandma Helen. Sarah was invited to school events and birthday parties. She sent Grace cards and small gifts. She showed up consistently, proving over and over that she was trustworthy. "It's strange," Jake told me during one of our Sunday dinners. "After years of her not being in my life, now she is. And it's fine. Not perfect, not uncomplicated, but fine. That's all it needs to be," I said. My speech had mostly returned to normal, though I still struggled when tired. "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive her?" He asked the same question Sarah had asked months earlier. "Maybe. Time will tell, but I've let go of the anger. That's something. It's a lot. Anger is heavy. Yes, I'm too old to carry it anymore." 10 years after the accident, Jake was named Chief of Trauma Surgery at Mount Sinai. It was a huge accomplishment, the culmination of years of hard work and dedication. The hospital threw a celebration dinner. Jake invited everyone, colleagues, friends, family. Sarah sat at our table, beside me and across from Amy. Grace, now 8, was between her parents, proud of her father's achievement, even if she didn't fully understand what it meant. During his acceptance speech, Jake looked out at the gathered crowd. "I want to thank everyone who believed in me and supported my journey. My wife Amy, who has been my partner in every way. My daughter Grace, who reminds me every day why I do this work. My colleagues, who challenge me to be better. And my grandmother, Helen Richardson, who quite literally saved my life when I was 15 years old." He paused, his eyes finding Sarah. "I also want to acknowledge someone else. My mother, Sarah Richardson. Our relationship has been complicated, defined by painful history and slow healing. But in the last 10 years, she's shown me what genuine change looks like. She's proven that people can transform themselves if they're willing to do the hard work. She's earned a place at this table and in this family. That's not easy to do. I respect her for it." The room applauded. Sarah was crying again, but smiling too. Jake raised his glass. "To second chances and the courage they require." "To second chances," everyone echoed. I sipped my wine, looking around the table at this strange, broken, rebuilt family. Grace chattering to her mother. Jake catching my eye and smiling. Sarah, sober and stable and present. This wasn't the family I'd imagined all those years ago, but it was the family we'd built from the pieces we had. A year later, I turned 80. Another party at Jake's house, bigger this time. More friends, more family, more celebration. I sat in a comfortable chair in the living room, holding court while people came to wish me well. Sarah brought me a piece of cake. "Happy birthday, Mum." "Thank you." I took the plate, studying her face. 11 years sober, 11 years of consistency, 11 years of showing up. "Sit with me." She sat, and we watched the party together. Grace was playing with some cousins from Amy's side of the family. Jake was laughing with his colleagues. Music played softly in the background. "I need to tell you something," I said. Sarah looked at me, concerned. "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" "No, I'm fine, but I'm 80. That means facing certain realities." I set down my cake. "I forgive you, Sarah." She went still. "What?" "I forgive you. For abandoning Jake, for hurting our family, for all of it." I looked at her directly. "It took me 10 years to get here. 10 years of watching you show up consistently. 10 years of seeing you do the hard work of changing. 10 years of witnessing your commitment to sobriety and redemption. You've earned this forgiveness." Sarah's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mum, You don't need to say anything. I just needed you to know. Life is short. I'm 80. I don't want to carry this anymore. And more importantly, you've proven you're not the same person who made those terrible choices. You're someone new, someone better, someone worthy of forgiveness." She reached for my hand, and this time there was no hesitation. We sat together, holding hands while the party continued around us. Mother and daughter. Broken and healed. It wasn't a perfect ending. There would always be scars, but scars prove you survived. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I'd given up on myself." That's what family does. We don't give up. Jake found us like that, sitting together, holding hands, tears on both our faces. He stopped, taking in the scene. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "Better than fine." He smiled, understanding something had shifted. "Good. Come on, Grandma. Time to blow out your candles. All 80 of them. We might need the fire department on standby." The family gathered around as Amy brought out the cake, candles blazing. Grace led everyone in singing "Happy Birthday," her voice high and sweet. I looked at all these faces, Jake, Amy, Grace, Sarah, friends old and new, and felt overwhelming gratitude. I'd been given 17 years with my grandson when his mother abandoned him. I'd watched him grow from a broken 15-year-old into one of the best trauma surgeons in New York. I'd seen him build a family of his own, breaking the cycle of abandonment and creating something whole and healthy. I'd witnessed Sarah's transformation from selfish addict to sober woman of integrity. I'd lived to see reconciliation and healing. "Make a wish, great-grandma," Grace called. I closed my eyes. What do you wish for when you've already received everything that matters? I wished for more time. More years with this family we'd cobbled together from broken pieces. More Sunday dinners and birthday parties, and ordinary moments of extraordinary love. I blew out the candles. Everyone cheered. Jake cut the cake. Life continued in its beautiful, messy way. That night, after everyone had gone home, Jake drove me back to my apartment. Sarah had offered to help clean up, staying behind with Amy. It was just the two of us in the car, driving through the quiet streets of Brooklyn. "You forgave her," Jake said. It wasn't a question. I did. "How does it feel?" "Lighter, like putting down something heavy I've been carrying for years." I looked at my grandson's profile, illuminated by passing streetlights. "Are you okay with that?" "I'm more than okay with it. I'm proud of you. Forgiveness is harder than anger." "You forgave her years ago." "I did, but my forgiveness was for me, to let go of the burden. Yours is different. It's an acknowledgement that she's genuinely changed. That means something." We pulled up to my building. Jake helped me out of the car and walked me to my door. "Thank you," I said, "for everything, for becoming the man you are, for showing me that mercy is stronger than revenge, for building this beautiful life." "I learned from you," he said, hugging me tight. "Everything good in me came from you." "That's not true. You had it in you all along. I just gave you the space to find it." Jake kissed my forehead. "I'll see you Sunday for dinner." "Wouldn't miss it." I watched him walk back to his car. This man I'd raised, this doctor who saved lives, this father who broke the cycle. He waved before driving away. I stood in my doorway for a long moment, breathing in the cool night air. Inside my apartment, I looked at the photos covering my refrigerator. Jake's graduation pictures, his wedding photos, pictures of Grace at various ages, a recent photo of all of us together at Grace's school play, Jake, Amy, Grace, Sarah, and me, a family rebuilt. On my nightstand was the photo album Sarah had given me years ago. I picked it up, flipping through the pages, evidence of Jake's journey, collected by the woman who'd missed it all. Her way of staying connected when she'd forfeited the right to be present. I thought about that night 17 years ago, about the phone call at 2:47 a.m., about Jake standing outside the operating room, deciding whether to save his mother's life, about the choice he'd made to show mercy. That single decision had changed everything. It had given Sarah a reason to get sober. It had started the long, slow process of healing. It had proven that some cycles can be broken, that some wounds can heal, that redemption is possible for those willing to do the work. I got ready for bed, moving slowly through my nighttime routine. My body was 80 years old, marked by time and a stroke, but my heart felt younger, lighter. The anger I'd carried for so long was finally gone, replaced by something like peace. As I lay in bed, I thought about second chances, about the courage required to extend them, and the courage required to accept them, about Jake's decision to operate on Sarah, about my decision to meet her for coffee, about all the small choices over 11 years that had led to forgiveness. Life was strange and complicated and beautiful. We'd taken the broken pieces of our family and built something new, not perfect, never perfect, but real and honest and earned. I closed my eyes, grateful. Grateful for Jake, grateful for Grace, grateful even for Sarah's transformation, which had required hitting rock bottom and climbing back up. Grateful for the time I'd been given to witness all of it. Tomorrow there would be more challenges. Sarah would continue navigating sobriety one day at a time. Jake would continue saving lives. Grace would continue growing. I would continue aging. But tonight all was well. I'd saved my grandson from a shelter 17 years ago. He was skinny, bruised, and broken. Now he was a trauma surgeon with a family of his own. And his mother, who had abandoned him, was finally becoming someone worthy of being called Mom. The cycle was broken, the family was healed, and I could finally rest.